The world of football is incredibly unequal. Even in the Premier League, the biggest and richest league on the planet, the team with the most financial might, Manchester City, have won 4 out of the last 5 league titles. Whether they get to keep them is a slightly different issue. Over in Germany, Bayern Munich have been crowned as Bundesliga champions in each of the last 10 seasons. In France, PSG's budget is 5 times that of any other team in the league, and that's why they have won 8 out of the last 10 Ligue 1 titles. And in Italy, Juventus won 9 successive Scudettos before deciding to self-immolate for the second time in only 15 years, just to make things a bit more exciting. Thanks, Juve. There are a whole host of football leagues that are duopolies, with 2 teams steamrolling everyone else virtually every season. The most obvious example that comes to mind is the Uruguayan Primera Division, where Nacional and Peñarol have won 100 league titles between them, with the next most successful team only having won 4. But it is a similar story in Scotland with Celtic and Rangers, in Ukraine with Dinamo Kyiv and Shakhtar Donetsk, and in Serbia, where Red Star and Partizan Belgrade reign supreme. So they're easy to identify, but I was recently asked to try and find the most one-sided top flights in all of world football that are dominated by just one club, and that's a little bit more difficult. I looked far and wide, from Lincoln Red Imps, who have won all but 2 Gibraltar Premier Division titles since the 2002-03 season, to April 25, who have been crowned as champions of North Korea more times than every other club combined. Neither of those 2 made the cut though, which should give you some indication as to the level of dominance that we're dealing with here. So without any further ado, here are 7 leagues that are dominated by just one club. 7th, Sheriff Tiraspol. There are, at least as far as I can tell, 272 domestic top-flight men's football leagues around the world, 19 of which were sufficiently dominated by a single club to make my shortlist, before being whittled down to a final 7. 4 of those 19 are teams that I just so happen to have made entire videos about, including Sheriff Tiraspol, in a video entitled The Football Club Without a Country. Without wanting to give away too many spoilers then, just in case any of you should be interested in giving that a watch, Sheriff are based in the city of Tiraspol, which is the capital of the breakaway state of Transnistria. A small slither of territory located between Moldova and Ukraine, and recognised by the UN and the international community as being part of Moldova. Despite declaring independence in 1990, Transnistria is a land frozen in the Soviet era, complete with a massive statue of Vladimir Lenin outside of their parliament building, and a hammer and sickle on their flag. Sheriff, the company that owns Sheriff Tiraspol, was founded by 2 former KGB agents and effectively controls Transnistria's entire economic and political landscape. It is little wonder, therefore, that the football team that they bankroll has become extremely successful. Despite claiming independence, Transnistrian football clubs still compete within Moldova's Football League structure, and Sheriff have won 20 out of a possible 22 league titles since the turn of the millennium, including each of the last 7. Sheriff went invincible in the 2006-07 season. They won 32 out of their 36 games in the 2020-21 campaign, scoring a ludicrous 116 goals whilst only conceding 7 all season, and they won against Real Madrid at the Santiago Bernabeu last season. Their dominance leaves the Moldovan Superliga in a rather unusual situation, whereby Moldovan football is completely, totally and utterly dominated by a club that claims not to be Moldovan at all. It is all rather strange, but I find it fascinating, and as I said, if you do too, feel free to check out a much lengthier video that I made about the club and the state of Transnistria as a whole. 6th, Johor Darul Tazim. There are some teams in this 7 who have dominated their country's domestic top flight since time immemorial, and others who have only stamped down their dominance in more recent years. Johor Darul Tazim belong to the second bracket, But boy oh boy, have they dominated Malaysian football in recent years. Founded in 1972, just over 50 years ago, until 2014, the club from the city of Johor Bahru had never won a major trophy of any description. Since 2014, however, they have won 9 successive league titles. Prior to that, no team had ever won more than 2 back-to-back league titles in the entire history of Malaysian football. If you're wondering what changed, well, I'm afraid it is not quite as romantic as you might have hoped. In February 2012, a man named Major General Tunku Ismail Idris Abdul Majid Abu Bakar Iskandar Ibni Sultan Ibrahim Ismail, better known, thankfully, just as Tunku Ismail Idris, became the president of Johor's Football Association. The region's clubs were struggling at that time, so Tunku Ismail ordered for a major revamp, consolidating its teams into a single representative to compete in the Malaysian League. Tunku Ismail is royalty as the Crown Prince of Johor, and first in line to the throne once his father, Sultan Tunku Ibrahim Ismail, finally pops his clogs. Johor's royal household is the richest in all of Malaysia, worth an estimated £650 million, meanwhile Tunku Ismail is reported to have a personal fortune worth £40 million. Rumoured to have been interested in acquiring Valencia from Peter Lim in 2021, if Idris could make Valencia as dominant as he has made Johor Darul Tazim, that would be awfully bad news for the rest of La Liga. Following his reorganisation, Tunku Ismail renovated Johor Darul's 40,000-seater stadium, which is named after his father, obviously, and brought in the likes of former La Liga top scorer Dani Guiza from Getafe and Italian midfielder Simone Del Noro from Lazio. In 2016, Tunku Ismail formally took ownership of the club, investing a further £10 million and turning them fully professional. The financial gulf between Johor Darul and the rest of the league has resulted in an equally enormous sporting gulf, and they now win the league by at least 10 points every season. Between 1982 and 2014, Selangor were the Malaysian Super League's most successful club, with a total of 6 league titles. Johor Darul Tazim have won 9 in as many years. Farewell any semblance of competition in Malaysian football. It was fun whilst it lasted. 5th, Bayern Munich. My shortlist of 19 leagues dominated by one club includes some of the most obscure top flights in all of world football, and I sort of overlooked all of the big obvious leagues when drawing up my shortlist. Initially, I had Lincoln Red Imps in 7th, but it was only when I mentioned Bayern Munich in the introduction and actually looked at just how dominant they have been, both historically but particularly at the moment, that I realised I had to include them. It's an interesting piece of trivia that Bayern Munich weren't founding members of the Bundesliga in 1963, as only 5 of the most successful teams from the previous 12 years in the Oberliga South were admitted, and Bayern ranked 6th over that time. To add insult to injury, their cross-city rivals 1860 Munich, who ranked 7th, were inducted into the Bundesliga by virtue of having won the Oberliga South title in its final season. Bayern protested, but to no avail. At that time, Bayern Munich had won just 1 German championship in the 63-year history of the club, coming all the way back in 1932, a year before Hitler became Chancellor. It took just 2 seasons for the Bavarians to win promotion to Germany's top flight though, which coincided with the emergence of Franz Beckenbauer and Gerd Müller, arguably Germany's 2 greatest players of all time, at exactly the same time. By the mid-1970s, Bayern hadn't just become the dominant force in German football, they won 3 successive European Cups. These days, their dominance has reached yet new heights, prompting some to nickname Germany's top flight as the Bayernliga. Bayern's financial supremacy, twinned with their excellent management, has made them virtually unstoppable. 10 successive Bundesliga titles is a reflection of that fact, as the club continues to hoover up the league's best talent, and though they don't look like running away with it for once this season, it would take a much braver man than I to bet against them making it 11 from 11. Fourth, Dinamo Zagreb. Instinctively, I always think of the Croatian Football League as being a two-team league, given the intense rivalry between Dinamo Zagreb and HITC Split. But much as saying it won't do me any favours among HITC supporters, that isn't really the case. Whilst they are the two most successful football clubs since Croatia became independent and formed its own league, and the only two teams to have won more than one HNL title, HITC have won just 6 titles to Dinamo's 23. What's more, HITC won 3 of the first 4 Croatian Football League titles, back when Dinamo was still named Croatia Zagreb. In the last 17 years, so since the 2005-06 season, Dinamo Zagreb have been crowned as Croatian champions in all but one season, which was the 2016-17 campaign, in which they finished 2 points behind champions HNK Rijeka. Normal service has since been resumed though, and in the 2018-19 season, Dinamo won the league by a massive 25 points. Founding members of the Yugoslav First League, and the only Croatian football club to have won a European trophy, Dinamo owe their sustained success to a couple of things. On the one hand, Dinamo have an outstanding academy, where the likes of Robert Prosinecki and Luka Modric began their careers. On the other hand, Dinamo only enjoy a fraction of HITC Split support, currently averaging fewer than 4,000 fans at the 35,000 capacity Stadion Maksimir, and from 2003 through to 2016, Dinamo were run by former ultra Zdravko Mamic, who became mysteriously very wealthy during the Yugoslav wars, and has been living as a fugitive from justice in Bosnia since getting convicted in Croatia in 2018. There is far more to that story, and alleged corruption involving Dinamo and Croatian football than I could possibly get into now. But luckily, I have also made an entire video about that, should any of you be interested. Third, Auckland City. We make a brief detour to the other side of the world in third place, to by far the largest city in New Zealand. As a country, New Zealand is more synonymous with rugby union, the Haka, and the All Blacks than they are with association football, with even cricket taking precedence over the world's most popular sport. The fact that New Zealand's most significant football club, currently Wellington Phoenix and formerly the New Zealand Knights, also compete in Australia's A-League, makes New Zealand's domestic top flight even more overlooked, not dissimilar to the Cymru Premier in Wales. Within this neglected wasteland, one team reigns supreme. Auckland City, founded in 2004, the same year that the New Zealand Football Championship was launched, following a series of failed leagues, have won 12 out of a possible 17 league titles, including all of the last 8. Waitakere United, who are the only other team to have been crowned as champions of New Zealand, were dissolved in 2021, having won their last league title in 2013. Now Auckland City's biggest competitors are probably their cross-city rivals Auckland United and Birkenhead United, both of whom are amateur. Auckland City are the only semi-professional team in the division, thus making their dominance not particularly surprising. In addition to dominating domestically, Auckland City also, again, unsurprisingly, dominate in the OFC Champions League, which they've won 10 times. Once again, the now defunct Waitakere United are the only other team to have won it on more than one occasion. Clearly a half-decent side, Auckland beat UAE champions Al Ahly and African champions TP Mazembe at the 2009 FIFA Club World Cup, and they only lost 2-1 against South American champions and Argentine giant San Lorenzo at the tournament in 2014, which I find quite frankly incredible. Second, Ludogorets Razgrad. There was a time when Bulgarian football was among the most firmly entrenched duopolies, of the kind that I alluded to in the introduction, in all of world football, with the Sofia giants of Levski and CSKA reigning supreme for well over half a century. Now Bulgaria's top flight, known as the first professional football league, is very much a monopoly, but neither Levski nor CSKA are the league's titans anymore. In fact, not only have those two been dethroned, and indeed CSKA severed into two clubs who both now claim the former's identity, it isn't even a club from Bulgaria's capital that has made the division their own. The city of Razgrad, in the northeast of Bulgaria, is home to fewer than 50,000 people, compared to more than 1.2 million in the capital city Sofia. What's more, prior to 2011, Ludogorets Razgrad, who were founded way back in 1945, had never played top-flight football, let alone been crowned as Bulgarian champions. Although Bulgarian football has a long, storied and proud tradition though, it is hardly swimming in cash, nor is it squeaky clean. In 2010, Ludogorets were acquired by Bulgarian billionaire Kirill Domosheyev, who is worth an estimated $2 billion. In their first season under Domosheyev, Ludogorets won promotion to the top flight of Bulgarian football, and they have proceeded to win the league every season since. That now puts them on 11 successive league titles, which they have won with one of the most cosmopolitan, and indeed hated squads, in all of world football. Once again, I have made an entire video about Ludogorets, entitled Ludogorets Razgrad, the most hated club in Europe, which explains their rise, the man behind them, the corruption of Bulgarian football, and why they are so disliked in more detail. I promise that I didn't make this video solely to plug other videos that I've made, it's just a very lucky coincidence. Honourable mentions. Before we come to top spot, I thought that I'd give a quick word to some of the teams that made my shortlist but just missed out, and when I say a quick word, I really do mean just that. Supremely dominant clubs that only narrowly missed out include RB Salzburg, Karaba, Olympiakos, Linfield, Niassa Big Bullets, and what a name that is by the way, April 25, Al Ahly, Lincoln Red Imps, HJK, Esperance Sportive de Tunis, Nupapa Marienga, and FC Istiklal. The last of those, FC Istiklal, have won each of the last 9 Tajikistan High League titles in ludicrously corrupt fashion. And if that has piqued your interest, I do also have a documentary all about them and Tajik football entitled The Most Corrupt Football League on Earth. Sorry, I really couldn't help myself, but where else are you going to find a documentary about the corruption of football in Tajikistan? Such a level of dedication to making videos that there is literally no demand for from absolutely anyone is surely worth subscribing to this and my backup channel if you haven't already. And it is actually quite an interesting video if you haven't already seen it. Right, that's enough of all that. Here is, as far as I can tell, the most domestically dominant football club on the face of the earth. But it's hardly going to be in the centre of itself. Anyway, you get the idea. First, Naughty FC. Who? Yes, don't worry. I anticipated your response, and your ignorance is to be forgiven, at least on this occasion. Naughty FC might not be as well known globally as Manchester United or Real Madrid. Indeed, they might actually be called Naughty FC for all I know. I couldn't find out how to pronounce it. But those two clubs can only dream of ever attaining Naughty's stronghold over their domestic top flight. The Tuvalu A Division, or the National Provident Fund Championship League for sponsorship reasons, was founded as the top flight of Tuvalu football in 2001. A remote island microstate in the Pacific, about halfway between Hawaii and Australia, Tuvalu is home to fewer than 12,000 inhabitants, has a GDP of less than $40 million, and is apparently the second least visited country in the entire world. You might be thinking, therefore, that the Tuvalu A Division is surely the only football league in Tuvalu. Well, you should be careful about making such rash and ill-educated assumptions because there is also the Tuvalu B Division, made up of the Tuvalu A Division team's reserve teams, and I have even seen mentions of a C Division, occasionally, over the last couple of years on their Facebook page. All football teams in Tuvalu are amateur, there is no promotion or relegation between the divisions, and there is only one football pitch on the entire island. That is the magnificent Tuvalu sports ground in the nation's capital city of Funafuti, which has a capacity of 1,500 and has solar panels which provide 1% of the entire nation's energy supply. You won't be surprised to discover that Naughty FC, then, like all of the other teams in the league, play their home games there. A relentlessly dominating football machine, steamrolling all of those who dare to step in their pathways without a moment's hesitation to think of their families, Naughty have won a whopping 15 A-Division titles since the division was founded, including 13 of the last 16, though even that is a slightly distorted figure given the 2018 season, when Tuvalu's national team decided to enter themselves as a team in the league's top flight and won it. Hey, I'm not saying that Naughty FC are dominant. Well, I suppose that is exactly what I'm saying. That's what this whole video is about, but just embellish me. But if the national team has to enter the league to stop you from winning it every season, you've got to be doing something right. Anyhow, that is it for today's video. A real tour de force, I'm sure you would agree. And you have probably got about 15 other videos of mine that you're now dying to watch. Heck, I probably ought to make one all about Naughty to try and figure out the secret to their relentless success. There is a more serious point about how Tuvalu is sinking into the ocean as a result of climate change and rising sea levels, but every time I acknowledge the scientific fact that, yes, the climate is changing, I get two people with Roman statue avatars telling me that climate change is a hoax and that I've fallen prey to the Matrix. So, we'll just save that for next time. Thank you all very much as ever for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments and make sure you are subscribed to both my channel and the backup channel on your screen now. And you can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram via the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so. All the cool kids are doing it.